Lina Khatib, the Associate Fellow in the Middle East and North Africa Programme at Chatham House, the Royal Institute of International Affairs in London. Born in Beirut, Lina is the author as well of The Image of Politics in the Middle East and the Hezbollah Phenomenon, Politics and Communication. Welcome, Lina, to France 24. Good to see you tonight.
Thank you.
Let's first talk about this, a little bit of what we heard Noga talk about there, this US-brokered ceasefire, remaining a ceasefire despite the fighting in the south. President Trump has said he'll only tolerate Israeli, quote, surgical strikes on Hezbollah. How do you read the current status of the truce?
The current status is that it is unlikely to see a repeat of what happened on April 8 when Israel attacked various sites in the center of Beirut. However, Israel, according to the terms of the ceasefire, retains the right to strike Hezbollah targets where it perceives a threat. And this is exactly what it has been continuing to do. And meanwhile, Hezbollah is saying that it also has the right to continue to strike Israel, especially when it is advancing inside Lebanese territory. So although the ceasefire is a political agreement in place, when it comes to the military activity on the ground, yes, it is perhaps lower level than before, but it is continuing.
I mentioned a moment ago, Lina, about the fibre optic drone threat used by Hezbollah. Analysts talking about now this becoming regular. It was used sporadically before, and the tactics of Ukraine war basically being exported to Lebanon and becoming a very difficult threat to Israel to deal with. What's your take on that?
Well, the fiber optic drones are interesting militarily because they are very low cost. They actually could be civilian drones that are loaded with grenades, and they are tethered to the person operating them through a very thin fiber optic cable that is not perceivable to the naked eye. And because they're not reliant on wireless technology, it makes jamming them impossible, because that's what jamming of drones usually relies on. So here we have quite low-tech technology being used in this asymmetrical warfare, where Israel has to deploy physical barriers like nets to be able to protect Israeli soldiers from these kinds of drones. But I think the reason why Hezbollah has moved to using these drones is because its traditional arsenal of rockets is being depleted quite steadily. And these Israeli attacks in the south have targeted many Hezbollah weapons warehouses, and they continue to do so. So Hezbollah is having to innovate, and indeed these drones were used by Russia in the Ukraine war. But equally, Israel has invited a Ukrainian officer to Tel Aviv to advise on countering Hezbollah's drones. So in many ways, we're seeing a transposition of the context of the Ukraine war theater into the Middle East.
That's a very interesting point, that it's not necessarily a shift of choice, but actually looking at the degradation of the weaponry and looking at something that's much cheaper. And you mentioned that the cost, if you're looking at the basic, this is from the Ukraine battlefield, but these figures apply as well for Lebanon. We're talking about 500 to 3,000 for a cheap basic FPV, first-person drone, which is fibre optic. If it gets to more technical level, you're talking about quotes of up to 50,000. Compare that to, for example, the Tomahawk missiles used by the US in Iran, 1.5 to 2 million. There's talk of a new hypersonic missile, this Dark Eagle, 30 million per use. So that gives us an idea of the comparative cheapness and scale here. I also wanted to show you an example, Lina, of the use of this. This is what happened this time last week, Sunday, the aftermath of a fatal incident in which Hezbollah launched an attack. You might have seen this. It was a fibre optic drone. They killed 19-year-old Israeli soldier. This is Eden Fuchs. This is what Israeli public TV put out. What happened next? It's a Medivac team flew in a helicopter. It's in Tebeh. To fly him out of the south of Lebanon. There was a near miss as a second fibre optic drone was fired. And this is a short segment captured by a helmet-mounted camera. Now, we're hearing today Benjamin Netanyahu is looking at proposals in how to deal with this. But this is certainly a new development in terms of the possibilities there. Lina, you can see it yourself, what it could have done, the possibilities, the threat to the whole medevac team. Now, I've seen some Israeli soldiers, and I've talked to Noga about this shortly, saying that medevacs will need to be rethought in future. This is potentially, if not game changers, this is a significant moment.
Well, it is to a degree. Because of the newness of the deployment of this method by Hezbollah, so Israel will have to very quickly find ways to counter it. And meanwhile, this gives Hezbollah a propaganda opportunity because these drones actually grant the operator high visibility of the target. And this also means that Hezbollah can record what its drones are doing and transmit that online and show the degree of the damage inflicted on Israeli soldiers. And here we have an intersection of military operations and psychological operations because Hezbollah is trying its best to inflate the perception of success when it comes to its own operations. Mm-hmm. But this should not blind us to the reality, which is that military superiority is still with Israel in this war. Hezbollah benefits from the small successes in incidents like this. However, it is clear that ultimately Israeli technological superiority is going to prevail in its confrontation with Hezbollah inside Lebanon.
It's a very good point, and there's been multiple versions put out on the Hezbollah side, with set to music and dramatised, as you would imagine, to try and capture the optics war of this moment. One thing you've said recently, which strikes me, is that Hezbollah has been degraded as a political entity since the start of this conflict. That its political legitimacy is gone. It's been relegated to a spoiler.
Yes, absolutely. This is very important. So to go back to the ceasefire and why it is such a crucial issue, even if the military activity continues. The ceasefire that has been brokered was brokered by the Lebanese ambassador and the Israeli ambassador under US supervision. This means that it's the Lebanese state that is speaking on behalf of Lebanon in this context, and not Hezbollah, and not Iran. And this is very important because it is removing the Lebanon card from Iran's hands. And it is also telling Hezbollah that the only legitimate representative of Lebanon in diplomacy is the Lebanese state. And the Lebanese state had already declared all military and security operations by Hezbollah illegal and called for the disarmament of the group. Now, until not too long ago, Hezbollah was the most powerful political party in Lebanon. But now this has changed. Since the appointment of Prime Minister Nawaf Salam, and just before that, the election of President Joseph Aoun in 2025, Lebanon has turned a page. And the current government is no longer under Hezbollah's supervision, like the situation was for decades before that. And this is part of the reason why Hezbollah is being so stubborn and not listening to the Lebanese government, because it feels and knows that it is no longer dominant politically in Lebanon. And the only thing it can do is be a spoiler and just reject what the Lebanese government is telling it to do, even if this rejection is coming at the expense of the national interest.
It's a very interesting point, actually. So you have this relatively new Lebanese Prime Minister and President, the difference that they're making. So they came into power January 2025, President Aoun, as you mentioned, Prime Minister Nawaf Salam as well. Tell me about the support they have for now, because you talked about the importance for them kind of relegating the party's position a little bit in terms of its Hezbollah's viewing around the country. So you're saying that basically there's some more faith that's perhaps, I don't know if it is the majority of people, how much support do you think they have right now around the country to do what they're trying to do, which if I get this right, my understanding is they want to erode the power of Hezbollah, but not do it by confrontation.
Yeah, absolutely. They are very sensitive to the societal composition of Lebanon. where Hezbollah has been, by force, I would say, in many ways, the major political voice of the Shia community in Lebanon. And that's why the government does not want to disarm Hezbollah by force, because this could stir sectarian tension in the country. But what they are doing is assert Lebanon's sovereignty, and this is very important. And in this, they actually have the support of the majority of the Lebanese people, as well as the majority of Lebanon's political parties. It is pretty remarkable to see political parties from across the political spectrum, with the exception, of course, of Hezbollah itself. All those other parties are really rallying around the president and the prime minister. They want to see the government negotiate on behalf of Lebanon internationally. They want to see the rule of law being handled by the Lebanese state. They want to see the Lebanese armed forces deployed all over Lebanon. So when it comes to political support, certainly the president and the prime minister have what I would say unprecedented levels of political support that have not been seen in Lebanon for decades.
I want, for those listening, trying to understand why this might matter to President Trump right now. We often talk about the influence of his family on his politics, particularly his Mr. Fix-It on foreign affairs, his son-in-law Jared Kushner, but he has an influential Lebanese son-in-law as well. Tell us about that.
Well, not necessarily influential, but the fact is he has a Lebanese son-in-law, and this makes it personal for President Trump when he has a member of his close family come from Lebanon. This means that he does genuinely care. And also, of course, he has appointed the father of his daughter's husband as one of his advisors on the Middle East. And I think this is positive because, if at the very least, it gives him a more granular understanding of what is happening in Lebanon and the nuances of this complex country. And this is translating into a quite clear position by President Trump on Lebanon, in that he wants Lebanon to have peace with Israel, and he wants this done through official state channels. And he keeps repeating wanting to invite the Lebanese president to the White House. Now, of course, the invitation for the president to meet with the Israeli prime minister is a bit contentious, but the big picture is the president of the United States is giving a platform to the president of Lebanon in a way that was not seen by many previous US presidents. So this is positive for Lebanon's status in diplomatic circles.
Lina, good to talk to you tonight. Thank you for your thoughts and analysis. Lina Khatib, Associate Fellow for Middle East and North Africa Programme at Chatham House. Thank you.